My father, in order to win over his mistress's favor, secretly switched my mother's daughter with the mistress's daughter. He let the mistress's daughter take my place as the legitimate daughter, raising her in luxury and privilege. That mistress mocked my mother in private, a country bumpkin like her, in the end, spent her whole life only making a wedding dress for someone else. Even my father thought my mother was stupid and easy to fool, but my mother had simply never been to school. She wasn't stupid. They didn't know that on the day my mother gave birth, a fire broke out in the back courtyard, and I was switched back immediately before he died. My father could never figure out how he had ended up falling into the hands of my mother, that rustic village woman. The day the betrothal gifts from the Yongning Marquis residence were carried over, a crazed-looking girl suddenly came running to the front of the Song residence. She grabbed the housekeeper's sleeve and shouted, "I'm the legitimate daughter of the Song family. I was switched at birth back then. Hurry and take me to see your mistress." The housekeeper immediately shook her off. "Do you think our mistress is someone just anyone can meet?" The girl nearly fell. After steadying herself, she stared at the boxes of betrothal gifts being carried into the Song residence and murmured in a daze, "I'm the real Miss Song. The one marrying into the Marquis's mansion should be me." As soon as she finished speaking, she saw me get down from the carriage, and all the servants of the Song residence were bowing to me. She froze for a moment, then rushed straight up to me and shouted like a madwoman, "I am the legitimate young lady of the Song residence. All these years, you have occupied my place. I want to see the mistress. She is my own mother, and she will definitely recognize me." Before she could finish speaking, the steward, together with several servants, dragged her away. Everyone said she was crazy and that everything she said was nonsense. However, the words she said before being dragged away lingered in my mind, impossible to shake off. She screamed at me, "Have you never thought about why your father dotes on you so much? It's because you were born to the woman he loved." Everyone in the manor knew that my father kept a cherished mistress outside the home, so over the years, though my father and mother appeared to be on good terms, in truth they had long since grown apart. After my mother gave birth to me, she kept bleeding, and the two of them never shared a bed again. Father was cold toward mother, and was equally cold toward my elder brother, who resembled her in both features and expression. Over the years, he had always paid no heed to my brother, his firstborn son, yet he doted on me alone. Not only did he have every fine thing in the household sent to my courtyard, but he also spared no expense in hiring a tutor to teach me to read and study. By the time I came of age, I was already a renowned talented woman in the capital. He spared no effort in raising me and would tell everyone that he had a daughter who was both talented and beautiful. Later, the Marchioness of Yongning, whose household took a liking to me at a palace banquet and begged His Majesty to grant me in marriage to the Marquis, its legitimate eldest son, Xie. My father was only a fifth-rank official, and everyone said I was lucky. This marriage was considered the Song family's reaching above its station. My father's drastically different attitude toward me and my brother always made me feel that something was odd. After the girl was dragged away today, I had my personal maid Xiaohong follow her all the way and watched her go into that courtyard in the west of the city. I knew that the exquisite little courtyard was the place my father used to house his mistress. Xiaohong spent a little silver to find out the girl's identity from the servant guarding the gate. The servant said the girl was named Liu Xiong'er, the daughter of Madame Liu in the courtyard, but she had been disliked by Madame Liu since childhood. If the master did not come, her life was even worse than that of the servants. Before leaving, Xiaohong happened to run into Madame Liu. Sure enough, Madame Liu was beautiful, especially with the mole beneath her eye, which made her look even more alluring. After hearing Xiaohong's reply, I suddenly remembered that the day before, in the cloth shop, I had met a beautiful woman who had kindly helped me pick out fabric for making clothes. She said her daughter was the same age as I was, and the look in her eyes when she looked at me was full of tenderness. I remember that the woman also had a mole under her eye. She was the secret mistress my father kept outside the household. Could it be that everything the girl said today was true? Was I really born to that mistress? My mother loved me so much, yet she had raised the child of her enemy. My heart sank all at once, and my whole body trembled uncontrollably. The teacup in my hand fell to the floor and shattered too. I lay sprawled on the bed, sobbing so hard I could not catch my breath. After my mother returned to the manor from the mountain, where she had gone to pray for blessings, she came straight to my room, sat by the bedside, gently patted my back, and asked softly, "Who upset our Yunqian? Tell mother, and mother will help you get even." I was sobbing so hard I could hardly catch my breath, unable to get out a single coherent sentence. Mother gently wiped the tears from my cheeks with a silk handkerchief. Just then, my brother's voice came from the courtyard. "Song Yunqian, your brother came back from the racetrack and bought you the sweet milk curd you like." Before my brother had even finished speaking, he saw our mother come out of my room and frown at him as she asked, "Did you snatch something from your younger sister again?" Seeing that things were going badly, my brother hurriedly put the cheese pastry in his hand on the ground and ran out of the courtyard. As he ran, he turned back and said, "I didn't steal her things. That was how many years ago." Mother let out a cold snort. "If you didn't do anything wrong, then why are you running?" I wiped away my tears and called Mother into the room. "Mother, it's not brother's fault. It's your daughter your daughter doesn't want to marry into the Yongning Marquis residence anymore." Mother looked concerned. "Why is that?" "I've looked into it, and that Xie Ziyi has both excellent looks and character. He's a rare and outstanding husband indeed." I shook my head. "Daughter won't marry anyone. Daughter wants to go cultivate at Miaoyin Nunnery, reciting sutras day and night to pray for blessings for mother and brother, wishing only that mother may be at ease." "You child, what kind of evil has gotten into you? Why would you suddenly want to become a nun for no good reason?" As she spoke, Mother looked at Xiao Hong, who was avoiding her gaze, and asked, "You stay with the young lady all day long. Do you know if the young lady has run into some trouble?" Xiao Hong's face turned pale as she hurriedly knelt to the ground. Miss learned about her own background, so I immediately knelt before my mother as well and said word by word, "Today, a young woman stood at the gate of the Song residence and said that she was truly mother's daughter. She is the daughter of father's concubine, Madame Liu. For some unknown reason, the two of us were switched back then. Father and Madame Liu should both know about this matter. They deliberately plotted to frame mother. Mother, your daughter will go to the nunnery and become a nun. I will no longer occupy the position of the legitimate eldest daughter of the Song family, and I will never join them in hurting mother." Mother was stunned for a moment and stared at my reddened eyes for a long while. "Just for this, you cried yourself to the point of being heartbroken." After learning the truth, Mother was not angry at all. Instead, she laughed and said, "At least I haven't doted on you for nothing." With a calm expression, I sniffled, "Mother, now that you've learned I'm not your biological daughter, aren't you heartbroken?" My mother raised her hand and brushed the tears from the corner of my eyes, smiling faintly. "Silly child, back then after they switched you away, I immediately switched you back. Although you don't look as much like me as your brother does, I knew you were my daughter. Fortunately, you don't look like me. Otherwise, it would be hard to find you a good husband." I froze. "Have they been switched back?" "Nothing has changed at all. I'm still mother's own daughter." Seeing me standing there stupidly without saying a word, my mother rose to her feet and took a copper hairpin from Xiao Hong's head. She took my hand, and I flinched. "There's no need for a blood test to prove paternity. No matter what mother says, your daughter believes you." Mother smiled and pressed the tip of the bronze hairpin against the back of my hand. A moment later, she clutched the same bronze hairpin tightly in her own palm. Red rashes quickly broke out on the back of my hand. My mother spread out her palm for me to see, and her palm had developed the same red rash. I break out in a red rash whenever I touch jewelry made of anything other than gold or silver. In the past, people in the village all laughed at me, saying I was just a lotus farmer who dug up lotus roots, yet I had such a delicate condition. "You were pampered from a young age, and all the jewelry you used was made of gold and silver, so you never discovered that you had inherited my condition. Back then, Liu Yuyao failed to get through the gates of the Song residence, so she had your father switch you with her daughter, letting her daughter take your place as the legitimate young miss of the Song family. Your father was truly heartless. To win her favor, he actually committed such a vicious act, intending to ruin your life." After my father passed the imperial jincha examination, my mother followed him from the countryside to this capital. where even the dust seemed tinged with a trace of nobility. Everyone said she was nothing more than a woman from the countryside, able to survive only by relying on my father. But today, for the first time, I caught a glimpse of hatred in her eyes. 3. My mother had originally been a lotus harvester in Yangju. She supported my father through his studies and into the imperial examination ranks by digging lotus roots in the lower pond. After my father passed the imperial examination and became an official, he said he would take her to the capital to live a good life. The capital was rich, splendid, and bustling, and soon dazzled my father's eyes, and my mother, this wife from his humble beginnings, was no longer worthy of his attention. My mother worked all year round, and her skin had been darkened by the sun, nowhere near as pretty as the women in the capital. Her hands, too, bore countless cuts and chilblains from digging lotus roots in the winter, with scars crisscrossing her rough, coarse skin. My father watched her hurry back and forth in the manor, his eyes full of disdain. I brought you to the capital to be the mistress of the household. Before coming to the capital, my father had said the same thing, though back then he sincerely wanted to bring mother to the capital to enjoy a life of comfort. But now that he said this, there was an unspoken second half to his words. He had brought mother to the capital to be the mistress of the household, not to be a servant. Even the few servants newly bought by the Song residents looked more like the mistress of the house than mother did. Mother said nothing, her eyes lowered, her lashes hiding the disappointment in them. She began learning how to be the mistress of the household. She accompanied her brother in studying and learning to read. In the past, she had always been reluctant to wear the clothes and jewelry her father gave her. Now she began taking out all those rare and precious things, and dressing herself like the women of the capital. She gradually no longer looked like a rustic village woman, but in her father's eyes, she had long since ceased to exist. At a banquet, he met Liu Yuyao, the concubine-born daughter of the Minister of War's household. At the prime of her youth, she was radiant and beautiful. Originally, a concubine-born daughter like Liu Yuyao, who was bullied by the legitimate wife, could only be sent to a powerful household to become one of its concubines, paving the way for her family. But she was unwilling to become a concubine and live as she had in the Liu residence, surviving only by the legitimate wife's favor, so she set her sights on her father. Her father had passed the imperial examinations and enjoyed a smooth official career. In the family, there was only an unpresentable, long-suffering wife, and none of them could compare with her, a young lady born and raised in the capital. Forcing her father to divorce his wife and remarry was practically effortless. Father had been bewitched by Liu Yuyao and more than once wanted to send mother and my elder brother back to our ancestral home in Yangju. Less than half a year after entering the capital, father had changed his heart so quickly. Father was no longer mother's support. A single sentence from him could cut off her path to survival. The father who once felt pity for mother's sacrifices and promised he would earn scholarly honors to give her a good life now looked at her with nothing but utter disgust. My mother did not dare to cry at home, because the few servants in the household would laugh at her. She went to the lakeside and gazed at the lotus blossoms blooming in the emerald green waters of the lake. She missed home, yet did not want to go back. She sat by the shore, looking at a painted boat with golden windows and jade railings moored on the lake. She had never seen such a beautiful little boat before and stared at it in a daze, but she quickly noticed something was wrong. The boat was pitching noticeably from side to side. Unlike ordinary jolting, having lived by the lake for most of her life, her mother quickly realized that beneath the seemingly calm surface lurked dangerous undercurrents. She shouted loudly from the shore, but the people on the boat could not hear her. The painted boat was almost capsized by the waves, and a woman instantly fell off the boat without a second thought. Mother jumped into the lake and swam toward the woman who had fallen in. The woman was swept into the raging undercurrent, and the people on the boat were all unable to catch her. Fortunately, mother had grown up by the lake and was an excellent swimmer. She struggled to rescue the woman onto the shore. Afterward, my mother returned home in a sorry state. When my father saw my mother wearing damp clothes, he angrily smashed a teacup at her feet. "You think you're still in the countryside near Yangju? How dare you walk the streets dressed like that? What am I supposed to do about my dignity?" He was too angry to hear his mother say when she came home that he had jumped into the lake to save someone. His mother said it again, even if you were saving someone, you should still know to preserve your dignity. My father flicked his sleeves and his tone softened considerably. Forget it. You wouldn't understand even if I said more. You should not stay in the capital anymore. Go back. My mother lowered her eyes indifferently, no longer unable to hold back tears as she had before. Her tears had already dried up by the lakeside. She merely lifted her eyes and asked my father softly, I can go back, but there aren't any good teachers back home. Would it be all right to leave Huaya in the capital to study? A trace of reluctance flashed in my father's eyes, but only for an instant. He had promised Liu Yuyao that he would send both mother and son back to their hometown in Yangzhou. I've looked over Huaya's schoolwork. He's simply not cut out for studying. I don't have time to look after him, so take him with you as well. After my father said those harsh words, he pretended to comfort her. Right now I'm still just a minor official. Once I've established myself in the capital, I'll bring you mother and son back. By then Huaya will be older too, and I'll help him choose a noble lady from this capital to be his wife. My mother had never been to school, but she was not stupid when father began to despise the rough feel of her close-fitting undergarments. Mother knew he had another woman outside. Mother knew that woman must not be as despised by father as she was, and must be living 100 times more luxuriously than she did. In fact, mother had never needed to live such a hard life. She used to love dressing up too, but all the money she had earned through hardship had gone to support father in his studies. Father had once said that when he became an official, he would buy her the prettiest clothes and let her live a good life, but father had long since forgotten the promises he once made to mother. Now he only hoped that mother wouldn't stop him from going off to live a good life. A draft blew through the hall, and mother shivered as she wrapped her arms around herself, her eyes red as she looked at my father. It's all because I'm too uncultured and have embarrassed my husband. Tomorrow I'll pack my things and take Huaya back to our hometown. In truth, I'm nothing more than a village woman from the countryside. I was never worthy of you, my husband. Now that you've given me a life of enough food and drink, what more could I possibly be unsatisfied with? I won't come to this capital again in the future, and I won't stand in the way of your prospects. Husband, don't forget what you said today. In the future, bring Huaya to the capital again. My father gave a response, and a trace of reluctance flashed across his expression. He looked at my mother's thin, weathered back as she returned to her room, after so many years together. It was hard not to feel a little soft-hearted, but the things mother said were not meant for him to hear, nor to soften his heart. The woman mother had saved today was the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's residence, Meng Jinxi. Afraid of being reproached by father, mother had not even changed out of her wet clothes and hurried home. Miss Meng promptly had the wet nurse attending her follow behind to escort her. The words mother had just said were meant for the old maid standing at the door. Mother could never forget that after Meng Jinxi woke up and learned that she was the wife of a court official from the capital, she looked at her cracked hands with eyes full of pity. The gratitude and compassion of this legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's residence were mother's final path to survival. For the next day, before mother had even stepped out the door, the gifts of thanks from the Prime Minister's residence were delivered to their home. Madame Meng came to the door in person to thank Madame Song for saving her life. 2 heavy chests of gold, silver, and jewels were carried into the courtyard, and the glittering light from within was dazzling enough to blind the eye. My mother had never seen such a display and absolutely dared not accept them. Madame Meng took my mother's hand and said, "The one you saved was my daughter, whom I gave birth to when I was nearly 40. You also saved my life. This little bit of things amounts to nothing." Lady Meng issued the invitation on the spot, saying that once Miss Meng had recovered next month, the Song family would be invited to the Prime Minister's residence for a gathering. Mother, however, shook her head. "I'm about to take my son back to Yangzhou. I'm afraid." Before she could finish, father cut her off. "Then go back after next month. Surely you don't mean to refuse the Prime Minister's invitation?" My father's voice was low, but it carried reproach. My mother looked innocent. "Husband, did I say something wrong again?" To Madame Meng, this scene only made my mother seem unbearably pitiful. She pitied my mother for being born in the countryside and for having worked hard to support her husband until he passed the imperial examination, only to end up sewing a wedding robe for someone else. My father despised my mother as a disgrace and never once took her out. My mother, this wife who had shared his hardships, was destined to be cast aside. Madame Meng called my mother over to inventory the gifts, and whispered in her ear, "These pieces of jewelry would all suit you. When you have time, you really should spend more effort dressing yourself up. My husband says I can't even tell fabrics apart," my mother said nonchalantly. "Such fine things should be saved for our daughter and daughter-in-law in the future." Madame Meng asked mother, "Can you do embroidery?" Mother shook her head. "In the past, I made a living by digging lotus roots in the lower pond, so my hands were always injured. I can't do very delicate work." Madame Meng immediately understood that the exquisitely embroidered sachet at father's waist was not made by mother's hands. Madame Meng took a deep breath and said to mother, "Come to the Prime Minister's residence tomorrow. I'll teach you how to recognize fabrics and how to dress yourself." Mother looked a little hesitant. "But no matter how I dress up, my husband says I still can't hide my rustic air." Madame Meng patted mother's hand. "I'm not telling you to please your husband. You must learn to be like the women of the capital if you want to stay here and secure a good future for your children." What Madame Meng said was also what mother had been thinking. After that, mother often went to the Prime Minister's residence and learned from Madame Shun how to be the mistress of a household. My mother was very smart, but unlike my father, she never had the chance to go to school. My father had originally hoped to use my mother's connections to climb his way up to the Chancellor, but instead it was my mother who grew closer and closer to the Chancellor's household. My mother's once rough face became smooth and delicate from the scent balm, and her clothing and makeup were no different from those of the noble ladies in the capital. She began accompanying Madame Meng to all kinds of banquets to make an appearance. With Lady Meng present, no one dared to mock mother's rural origins, and instead they all praised her as capable, saying she had supported father through his studies until he achieved official distinction. Soon, all the noble families in the capital knew that behind father stood mother, his wife. From humble beginnings, only then did father realize that if he sent mother back to her hometown in Yangzhou, he would be burdened with the disgrace of abandoning his wife from lean times. Yet at this very moment, Liu Yuyao was already pregnant. For the sake of his future prospects, her father urged her to enter the household as a concubine. As Liu Yuyao watched her belly grow day by day, she had no choice but to nod. At that moment, her mother, holding a box of poisonous lip rouge, came before Madame Meng and said, trembling all over, "Madam, just after I agreed to let the pregnant Liu enter the household, Liu had someone deliver this box of poisonous lip rouge to me. The doctor said that if I used it, I would be poisoned to death within 2 months. By then, my husband would be able to lawfully elevate Liu to the position of principal wife." This was the first time in her life that mother had ever lied. By then, she had discovered that she was already 2 months pregnant. Before she discovered father's affair with Liu Yuyao, she could not put her son and the child in her womb in danger, so, no matter what, mother could not allow Liu Yuyao to enter the Song residence. Not long after my mother left the Prime Minister's residence, rumors spread through the capital that the concubine-born daughter of Lord Liu, Vice Minister of the Ministry of War, was pregnant and had become a kept woman before even marrying. Liu Yuyao was at least considered a lady from a distinguished family. Yet she shamelessly climbed into bed and became a kept woman, only to be thrown out of the Liu household in the end. For a time, this matter became a topic of gossip among the women in the capital over tea. At that time, my father had just become a disciple under the Prime Minister, rising swiftly through the ranks with a smooth and promising official career. My father, for the sake of his reputation and future prospects, did not dare take Liu Yuyao into the household as a concubine. He could only arrange a courtyard for her outside the estate. Following Madame Meng's instructions, when my father was purchasing servants for Liu Yuyao, mother slipped her own people in among them. When Liu Yuyao learned that mother was also pregnant, she was so furious that she smashed the newly bought porcelain vase. Why should the child born to that low-born slut be the legitimate son, while my child can only be a bastard? She really does have good luck, coming from peasant stock. and yet she still managed to climb her way into the Prime Minister's residence. I'd like to see whether someone as stupid and unpresentable as her can keep being so lucky. That night, when my father went to visit her courtyard, she tearfully begged him to swap her child with her mother's. You promised you would marry me as your legal wife. Yet now the position of matriarch is occupied by that village woman. I trusted your words back then and gave you my virginity, only to end up in such a state. You have already betrayed me. I can never allow our child to be born out of wedlock. He should have been a legitimate son from the start. A beauty in tears is always heartbreaking to see. A young lady from a respectable family followed my father, and her reputation was utterly ruined for my father's future. She couldn't even be a concubine. She could only remain an unspeakable mistress kept outside. My father looked at Liu Yuyao, and the tenderness in his eyes was almost overflowing. He nodded. Liu Yuyao leaned against his chest and said with tears in her eyes, I'm not a heartless person either. I'll treat her child well and raise it properly. In order to make up for the guilt he felt toward Liu Yuyao, my father was willing to pay any price, even if that price was my mother, who had been kind to him, and me, still in her womb. So before I was even born, I had already lost my father. 5. I and the Liu family woman gave birth on the same day. She had a daughter in the early morning, and I gave birth to you. At night, your father bribed the midwife to switch you with Liu's daughter. But that day, someone in the side room knocked over a candle, and a fire broke out in the back courtyard. I had Lancio take advantage of the chaos to switch you back. Mother touched my hair and went on, when you were born, I pinched a fingerprint mark into your arm. During that period, I was always afraid you would be taken away, so I would always use bronze objects to touch your little hands. Your father still thought you had developed a rash. My father had always prided himself on being an upright gentleman. I never expected that, for the sake of that mistress, he would do something so cruel and vicious to Mother. I lay on Mother's lap, my eyes red as I looked up at her. I wanted to say something to Mother, but the words would not come out. Mother pinched my cheek and smiled at me. So what if your father has changed his heart? Does that mean your mother's days are over? I still have you, and I still have your brother. As for your father, he's nothing more than a stepping stone beneath our feet. My brother once said that when Mother had just become pregnant with me, she was always crying, but later, after my father entered the Zhongshu province on the recommendation of the Chancellor and gained a foothold in the capital, the Song residence grew larger and larger, and Mother no longer had time to cry. She learned many things from Madame Meng and began to manage the Song residence in an orderly and meticulous way. At that time, the new emperor ascended the throne, and Meng Jinxi, the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's manor, was made empress. Everyone in the capital knew that my mother had once saved the life of the empress of the Central Palace, and no one ever looked down on her rustic background again. She soon became an honored guest at banquets throughout the capital. Even the fact that she had gone down to the pond to dig lotus roots in support of my father's pursuit of the imperial examinations reached His Majesty's ears, and even the emperor said that my father had married a virtuous wife. Faced with my mother, his wife from humble beginnings, my father no longer dared act as domineeringly as he had in the past. After all, his future depended on the ties between his mother and the Prime Minister's household. He had once looked down on his mother, but now he had no choice but to treat her with respect. Years of forbearance had made his father increasingly dissatisfied with his mother, and what kept him enduring it was the matter from years ago when he had switched his mother's child with the daughter of the Liu family. He knew his mother would not remain pleased for long. As night fell, when father returned home after a round of social engagements, he heard from the steward about the uproar Liu Xiong'er had caused at the front gate of the Song residence that day. He rarely came to Mother's room. Mother was at the desk, going over the account books. I had fallen asleep lying on the couch, while Xiulan stood beside me, gently fanning me. The father asked, "What's wrong with Yun Qian?" The mother lowered her eyes and said indifferently, "She cried until she was tired, so she fell asleep here with me. She's already almost to be married, and yet she still acts so childishly." The father asked tentatively, "Why was she crying? Was it because of the mad words that girl said today? When I returned to the manor, I heard about it. That girl seemed to say she was your daughter. Could it be that you really have an illegitimate daughter outside. The mother set down the pen in her hand and suddenly realized, I almost forgot, Lady Liu seems to have given birth to a daughter for you. She should be about the same age as Yun Qian. Upon hearing this, father's breathing grew a little quicker, and he hurriedly changed the subject. As for Madame Liu, she has recently become pregnant. The child is mine. She has had a hard time living alone outside, so I want to bring her into the household and make arrangements for her. Mother froze for a moment, then smiled at father and said, what wonderful news this is. I wonder whether becoming a concubine would wrong her. When mother said this, there was not the slightest hint of displeasure in her expression, nor any trace of scheming or calculation. Father sat beside mother and let out a sigh. The rumors from back then have now finally died down. She really has had it rough these years, he said, taking mother's hand, with a sincere expression. He added, but once she comes through the door, she can only be a concubine. You will always be the mistress of the Song residence. When I heard that, I could no longer hold back and opened my eyes. Just as I was about to speak up for mother, I was stopped by her gaze. Mother said gently, rest assured, husband, I will treat her well. After my father left, I immediately sat up from the couch. Why did mother agree to let that Liu woman into the household? My mother came over and sat down by the couch, smiling as she said, in this capital, how many of the officials' households have no concubines? If I were to stop a concubine from entering the household, that would make me jealous and malicious. But that Liu family woman and father schemed against mother like this. But they still failed to scheme against me. Mother's gaze turned cold, her expression no longer as gentle as before. Before you get married, this Song residence should also be cleared out. 6. Mother said Liu Yuyao would be brought in only after I was married. Father also hoped that once I married into the Yongning Marquis residence and everything was settled, he could agree to it. The Song residence now was as quiet as before a storm. My mother managed the inner household and carefully prepared my dowry for me. On the 15th day of every month, without fail, she would go to the temple on the mountain to recite sutras and pray for blessings for the late Madame Meng. When Madame Meng was alive, she often expressed gratitude to my mother for saving her daughter's life, but my mother herself had not also found a way to survive because of that turning point. My mother often said that Lady Meng was truly her lifesaver. Liu Xiong'er found out that her mother went up the mountain on the 15th of every month, so she waited for her there. Just as her mother came out of the temple, she tugged at her sleeve, crying. Liu Xiong'er told her mother about the child swap her father had arranged back then. Something she had overheard from Liu Yuyao. Mother looked at the bruises, blue and purple beneath her sleeve, and suddenly found the words Liu Yuyao had once said to father, that she would treat the child born to mother well. Too ridiculous beyond measure. Mother lifted her eyes, her expression carrying a purity that did not belong to her age. My husband is a proper gentleman. He would never do such a thing. Miss, you must have misunderstood. Liu Xiong'er cried. I didn't misunderstand. My mother beats and scolds me at every turn. She is not my real mother. Mother took pity on her and took out a few silver ingots from her purse, placing them in her hand. There are mothers in this world who can be so cruel to their own children. You're grown now, and you can live well on your own. Liu Xiong'er looked at her mother in utter disbelief. Your husband and his mistress joined forces to deceive you. I clearly told you the truth, and yet you still wouldn't believe it. Mother shook her head. My husband would never lie to me. Liu Xiong'er curled her lips into a smile. I thought I was the pitiful one, but I didn't expect you to be even more pitiful. As soon as mother left, people from Liu Yunyao's courtyard arrived. The leading matron burst out laughing when she heard what mother had said, hands on her hips. So what if you tell her, she's just a stupid village woman? How could she ever figure these things out? The old woman was smiling when she was suddenly struck in the leg by a flying stone. She fell to the ground, clutching her leg and screaming in pain. In the next instant, the same happened to several people behind her, who also fell to the ground. Liu Xiong'er seized the opportunity to run into the woods. The old woman failed to catch her and could only return in a sorry state to report back. After hearing this, Liu Yuyao could not help but laugh. Did that peasant woman really say that? Does she trust the man she sleeps beside that much? The old woman nodded and said, Women in the countryside are just like that. They regard their husbands as their sky, unless the master tells them himself, they won't believe it. Upon hearing this, Liu Yunyao's expression grew even more disdainful. If I hadn't been lucky enough to save the empress back then, how could I have ever sat in the position of the head of the Song family? The son she gave birth to is useless. As for the daughter she raised, a country bumpkin of a woman, destined for nothing in this life but to have made a wedding dress for someone else. Once I give birth to a son for my husband this time, it will be time for her to give up the position of matriarch. Recently, father often went to visit concubine Liu in her courtyard. This was not only because concubine Liu was pregnant, but also to take the opportunity to meet concubine Liu's father. After concubine Liu's legitimate elder sister entered the palace, she enjoyed unbroken favor. Now that she was pregnant, she had been promoted to imperial consort. Concubine Liu's father had also risen steadily through the ranks and now held the post of Minister of War. But the Liu family's ambitions did not end there. They were still waiting for the imperial consort to give birth to a prince and ascend to the pinnacle of power. The Liu family was eager to build up its own power, and naturally my father became one of the people they sought to win over. My father had followed Prime Minister Meng for many years, yet even now he was only a fifth-rank official. He had long been dissatisfied with this, and, giving no thought to the favor of being promoted, quickly switched sides. As for what happened in court, my mother had no way of controlling it. She could only keep a tight rein on me and my brother. She bought a lot of things for my brother and personally saw him off when he enlisted. Mother said to father, "Huaya is not suited for studying. Let him go out and gain some experience. Maybe he can even win himself some honors." When father heard that my brother had joined the army, he only reminded mother, "Tell him that once he's on the battlefield, he must not be a deserter and bring shame upon me." On the battlefield, swords and blades have no eyes. Yet father showed not the slightest concern for my brother's safety. After all, he would soon have another son. If father hadn't thought I was Liu Yuyao's daughter, he would probably have treated me just as coldly as he treated my brother. I stood outside the door listening, feeling only a chill in my heart. The next day, my mother and I saw my brother out of the city together, and my mother tucked the peace charm she had begged for at the temple into my brother's arms. At parting, my usually irreverent brother stopped me, his expression earnest as he said, "Listen to mother. Everything she has done to get to where she is today was for our sake." I nodded. "Don't worry, brother, I'll listen to mother, and I'll protect her well." After seeing my brother off, mother was busy arranging my dowry again. Recently, rumors had been circulating in the capital that Xie Ziyi, the legitimate eldest son of the Yongning Marquis, had an outer chamber woman kept outside, and she had recently borne him twins, a boy and a girl. I paid off the trusted people around mother and kept the news from her. If it had been before, I would have run to mother's side and cried and made a scene, but now, I feel that these things are no longer that important. What matters is that Liu Yuyao is about to enter the residence, with the child in her womb and the Liu family's current status. She will surely not make things easy for mother, and I am going to marry into the Yongning Marquis's manor, become the mistress of the household, and become mother's support. 7. My husband set out for the frontier on the second day after our wedding. The day I returned to my parents' home, I went back to the Song residence alone. I went to my mother's courtyard to have tea. The housekeeper from the courtyard came in to report, "Madam had the best side courtyard tidied up for concubine Liu to live in, but she either says the furnishings are old-fashioned or the food is unappetizing. She's just relying on her pregnancy to cause trouble all day long." Mother didn't seem angry at all. She only asked lightly, "What does she want this time?" The nanny said irritably, "She says the effects of bird's nest soup are far inferior to bloodbird's nest, and she wants to drink bloodbird's nest to nourish the fetus. If she wants something, just go and arrange it for her." Mother reached out and tucked the loose strands of hair at the side of my face behind my ear, then curled her lips. "At least you're married off now. The Song family is utterly dull." I clasped mother's hand in return. "Mother, don't worry, your daughter will definitely stand by you." She smiled and asked me, "Do you know what I'm going to do?" I shook my head. "I don't know. But no matter what mother wants to do, your daughter will follow." Mother smiled at me and said nothing more. I stayed in mother's courtyard for only a short while before a servant came to say that father had returned from court and wanted to speak with me. At this time, my father had received Minister Liu's promotion and was already a fourth-rank official. Just as I reached my father's study door, Liu Yuyao also arrived. Her pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes curved slightly as she looked at me and said, "You've never thought about it, have you? You're so good-looking, perhaps you weren't born to your mother." I said coldly, "My mother was also beautiful before she married, but later she worked day and night to support the family, and it aged her greatly. If not for my mother, the Song family would not be what it is today." I was saying this to my father, but my father just stood there listening, showing not the slightest sign of being moved. His eyes held only Liu Yuyao, who was wiping away her tears with a handkerchief, looking tragically sorrowful. My father looked at me and said, "Actually, Yuyao is your biological mother. We kept it from you for so many years for the sake of your future." "What do you mean by that, father?" "What Liu Xiong'er said that day was all true. You and her were switched, which is why you were able to grow up as the legitimate daughter of the Song family." I sneered and asked, "How did you do it?" My father said stiffly, "We did it all for your own good. If you had grown up outside, could you still have landed such a good marriage as the Yongning Marquis's estate?" I let out a cold laugh. "That's not what I asked. What I'm asking is, how can you do something so vile, yet still act so righteous and indignant?" At those words, both my father and Liu Yuyao were stunned. Liu Yuyao looked at my father with red-rimmed eyes and sobbed, "Now even the young lady isn't close to me anymore. I'm clearly the young lady's own mother." Just as she finished speaking, she saw my mother walk out from behind the rockery by the ink pool. Liu Yuyao's pupils suddenly contracted. And then she said with a contemptuous expression, "Did you hear everything we just said?" "I heard everything." My mother lowered her eyes, her eyelashes hiding the emotion in them. "Is that why, all these years, you were content to be merely a kept woman?" Liu Yuyao wiped the tears from her face and, touching her coiffed hair, smiled. "So what if you latched onto the Prime Minister's manor and became the mistress? These years, you've only been raising my child for me. Everything you worked so hard to build will be mine." My father showed no trace of guilt. Standing on the steps, he looked down at my mother from above. "Now that the emperor and empress are estranged, I have already severed ties with the Meng residents. From now on, do not have any further dealings with the Prime Minister's manor." My father studied my mother's expression, but surprisingly, he detected not a trace of panic on her face. My mother slowly lifted her eyes and met his gaze, then covered her mouth with a smile. I had long anticipated that this day would come. So when Prime Minister Meng once intended to promote my husband, I had Madame Meng persuade him otherwise. A man who would even abandon his wife in hard times is absolutely not someone who can be trusted with important responsibilities. Otherwise, with the ties I have to the Prime Minister's household, and my husband's abilities, how could my husband have spent so many years in official circles and still remain only a fifth-rank official? My father, who had originally stood high and aloof with a proud, haughty expression, after hearing my mother's words, actually had a trembling voice. You've been pretending to be virtuous in front of me all your life. It was you. How could it be you? In your eyes, I was never virtuous at all. I was simply stupid." My mother let out a cold sneer. "Back then, when you failed to let Madame Liu enter the household and give her a proper status, you turned your thoughts to switching the children, wanting me to raise Madame Liu's daughter. It was utterly absurd." My father froze, all color draining from his face. How long have you known about this?" A faint smile curved at my mother's lips. "Before Yun Qian was born, Madame Meng had already taught me how to bribe the broker and plant my own informants among the servants you bought for the Liu family." "Husband, have you never wondered why it was such a coincidence? Just after you switched the child, the side room caught fire. A big fire left everyone busy putting it out." I walked over to my mother's side and looked at my father, who was swaying on the steps. "I have always been mother's daughter. All the favor father has shown me over the years was probably given to the wrong person." As soon as I finished speaking, Liu Yuyao rolled her eyes and fainted. My father hurriedly ran down to help her, stumbling and tumbling down the steps. The scene was truly a spectacle. My father, in a bedraggled state, pushed himself up and pointed at my mother, shouting, "Someone, take this vile woman to the woodshed." After he finished roaring, he realized that none of the servants around him had moved. The two trusted confidants who had followed him for years were pinned to the ground by the estate guards. Only then did his father realize that his mother had already replaced everyone in the manor with her own people in front of him. His mother obeyed him in everything. In his eyes, she had never been educated, only a foolish, clumsy woman. My father had never held my mother in regard, nor had he ever been on guard against her. He looked at my mother in front of him in utter disbelief. As if she were a stranger, my mother let out a bitter laugh and said, "I was still too kind to you. I even thought of locking you and Madame Liu in the study before." Men dragged them both to the woodshed. Two guards stepped forward and seized my father by the arms. My father struggled fiercely, and my mother whispered something in his ear. In an instant, as if his soul had been drained from him, his legs went weak and he was dragged away to the woodshed. I stared dazedly as my mother shed her mask of weakness and turned into this decisive, ruthless figure. Still, the look she gave me remained affectionate. "You've been out too long today. Hurry back to the Marquis residence, or else your mother-in-law will have complaints about you." I knew my mother had her own plans. I threw myself into her arms and asked her with red eyes, "What do you want to do, mother? I'm grown now, and I should be able to help you." She touched my face and still pushed me away. "Live your own life well. Go." 8 On the second day, because of illness, my father did not attend court and instead had someone deliver a handwritten letter into the palace. Inside that letter were pieces of evidence showing that Minister Liu had colluded with foreign enemies and maintained a private army outside the city. Upon hearing this, I was greatly shocked. The offense committed by Minister Liu could not be cleaned up by my father. How could someone as cowardly and afraid of death as my father possibly take the initiative to confess? I suddenly remembered that when I was little, mother had once looked at father with admiration and asked him for one of his copybooks, saying she wanted brother to learn calligraphy by copying it. So many years had passed, yet brother's handwriting still looked as bad as a dog's crawling script, while the copybook in mother's room had been flipped through until its edges curled. That handwritten confession letter was written by mother. I heard that after His Majesty read that letter, he flew into a furious rage and was about to confiscate and exile both the Liu family and the Song family. The Empress and Lord Meng invoked the life-saving kindness my mother had once shown her to plead for the Song family. The Emperor, out of regard for the Prime Minister's residence, only punished my father, while the others were spared. The Song family manor was sealed and searched after my father was imprisoned. Only I went to see him in just a few short days apart. He seemed to have aged 10 years. He stared blankly at the corner of the cell, murmuring, "When did she learn to write?" I took out the food and wine from the lunchbox, set out the bowls and chopsticks, and lowered my eyes as I said, "Brother said that back when you were still living in the thatched cottage, you would teach mother how to read and write whenever you had spare time." He closed his eyes. "So many years have passed, I had long since forgotten." "You didn't forget, it's just that after you came to the capital, mother was no longer in your eyes. You didn't care about her, so naturally you didn't know when she learned to write." I held the wine cup out before him and went on, "You also didn't know how hard she worked to manage the Song residence. Every night she would go over the account books and check the accounts. Over all these years, not a single entry in the Song family accounts has ever been wrong or missing. How could she possibly not know how to write?" Father tilted his head back and drank the wine in the cup, then looked at me and said, "I have been married to Lian Xin for 24 years, and she has never had such scheming depth. This matter must have been taught to her by someone else. Back then, she never even switched the child back. She was simply plotting to sow discord between us as father and daughter, and wanted to see me suffer and grieve with her own eyes. She is full of lies. You must never believe a word she says." Father had already begun to talk nonsense. One moment he said mother was innocent and straightforward, and the next he said mother had been scheming against him. Suddenly, as if he had figured something out, his cloudy eyes fixed on me as he said in a trembling voice, "Yes, all of this was her lie to me. Yu Yao really was pregnant. You must save her, save your own younger brother." I shook my head. "Aunt Liu was taken away by people from the palace last night. Today, word came from the palace that her elder sister, consort Liu, has been confined to her chambers. The Liu family is finished for good. Upon hearing this, the light in my father's eyes gradually faded away. He asked me, "I want to see your mother. Have your mother come see me. She once saved the Empress's life. If she pleads for me, she will surely be able to save my life. She does not want to see you." My eyes trembled slightly as I said, "Mother said that if you die alone, the whole family lives." She actually said something so heartless. My father's eyes reddened, and he suddenly let out a laugh. 24 years of marriage, and I have never understood her. 9 That was the last time I saw my father. Not only my father, but it seemed I had never really known my mother either. But I knew that everything she planned was for my brother and me. Not long after, news spread through the palace that consort Liu had died suddenly. I had originally thought that even if the Liu family fell from power, consort Liu, because of the dragon heir in her womb, would at least be able to keep her life. The day my husband returned in triumph, I ran into Liu Xiong'er, who was disguised and trying to leave the city. At the city gate, the patrol soldiers walked toward her, their weapons and armor clinking together with a crisp sound. Liu Xiong'er could not help shivering. I gave Xiaohong a meaningful look, and Xiaohong stepped forward and scolded her. "What's wrong with you, girl? We asked you to go back and fetch something. Why did it take you so long to come over?" When the officers and soldiers saw that she was a maid from the Yongning Marquis residence, they did not come over to question her and soon walked away. I walked up to Liu Xiong'er and asked, "Why did you survive?" Liu Xiong'er looked up at me. "Your mother said that as long as I was willing to inform on my mother, she had a way to keep me alive." My mother, seeing the confusion in my eyes, she curled her lips and said, "I really envy you. You have a mother who thinks of everything for you. Unlike me, I might as well not have a mother at all. You really have had a hard time over the years. Besides, your mother told me that if my own mother hadn't treated me so badly, I wouldn't have risked everything to expose her and save my own life." I had heard my mother say similar things before. She said that if my father had not been so cruel to her, she would never have come to this point. Today I had Xiao Hong take several silver notes to Liu Xiong'er and watched her leave the capital. Before leaving, Liu Xiong'er told me that mother had asked her to report that Liu Yuyao had smuggled forbidden medicine into the palace to help consort Liu win the emperor's favor. Liu Yuyao had presented 2 kinds of medicine to consort Liu. One was an aphrodisiac, capable of making men endlessly crave it and lose themselves. The other drug, however, had only recently been discovered by my mother. For the sake of my brothers and my future, my mother, many years ago, had secretly put medicine into my father's food that would make him unable to father children. Unexpectedly, after so many years, Liu Yuyao had suddenly become pregnant. My father was overjoyed and invited several highly respected old physicians to help her keep the baby, and all of them confirmed the pulse of pregnancy. My mother had people keep constant watch over Liu Yuyao's courtyard to make sure she had not been secretly seeing another man. What was even more coincidental was that not long after Liu Yuyao became pregnant, imperial consort Liu also conceived. By then, the imperial court had not produced an imperial heir for 5 years. Mother firmly believed there was nothing wrong with her medicine, so if there was a problem, it had to be Liu Yuyao. That day, before mother locked father and Liu Yuyao in the wood shed, she told father that he would never be able to father children again. My father, in the wood shed, tightly grabbed Liu Yuyao by the neck and forced the truth out of her mouth. It turned out that Liu Yuyao had found in the ghost market a fake pregnancy prescription that could make a woman feel a pulse of pregnancy. She originally planned to create an accident and miscarry after entering the Song residence, then frame my mother for it, so she could pull my mother down from the position of the chief wife. I suppose noble consort Liu also planned to frame the empress in this way. Mother had Liu Xiong'er denounce Liu Yuyao, and took the opportunity to help the empress bring down noble consort Liu. 10. On the day we went to pay respects at father's grave, mother told me that she had asked a doctor to examine the lust intoxication drug Liu Yuyao had given father. The doctor said that the drug contained 2 potent ingredients, which were the hardest on the body and caused severe depletion. If my father had not been dealt with, he probably would not have lived for 2 more years. No wonder news had recently spread from the palace that His Majesty had suddenly fallen gravely ill and passed away. With the support of the ministers, the legitimate second prince ascended the throne and became the new emperor. Everyone said Minister Meng was a master strategist, but few knew that there was also the hand of my mother, that woman. Behind it all, the borderlands had won a battle, and my elder brother had also made a name for himself in the army. After my brother returned to the capital, he was soon granted a noble title and married a lady from a distinguished family. Not long after, my mother was also granted a noble rank. After my father died, the Song family did not decline. Instead, it became even more prosperous than before. On the day Xie accompanied me home, my brother pulled me aside. "Is Xie still entangled with that concubine?" he said softly in my ear. "If life at the Marquis's manor is unpleasant, then come home and stay. You've got your brother," I snorted, "with mother here. I'm not afraid of anything." My brother sighed. "You don't have to put up with him just for the child in your belly." I was about to speak when Xie somehow appeared behind us, and said with a cold laugh, "When did I ever have a secret concubine, brother-in-law? Is this the reason you punched me on the way back to the capital?" I jumped in fright, and Xie hurriedly held me steady. I shot him an annoyed glance. "Why do you walk so quietly? I'm pregnant, and if you scare me like that, what if something happens?" All right, it's all my fault, I shouldn't have asked," Xie muttered softly. "Even if I get beaten and wrongly accused, I still shouldn't have asked." I came to my senses and looked at my brother. "You really laid a hand on him. How could you hit him? He's much better at fighting than I am." "I didn't even manage to hit him, did I?" My brother rolled his eyes so hard they were almost turning to the sky. "You and I both have the surname Song, so why are you already siding with an outsider?" I smiled and hurriedly explained to my brother. "Brother, you may not know this, but that Xie who kept a mistress outside his marriage and even had a pair of twins is the second legitimate son of the Marquis of Chang'e. It was only because they shared the same name that the rumor later got passed around about the wrong person." "How come I've heard this rumor before?" Xie frowned and asked me. "After hearing such a rumor, how could you still be willing to marry me?" I slightly lowered my eyes, hiding the trace of panic that flashed through them. "Because mother said your character is very good. I believe what mother says." 11 In the height of summer, the lotus flowers in the pond were blooming profusely amid a sea of lush green. When my mother entered the palace, she casually mentioned to the Empress Dowager that the lotuses at home had bloomed. Today the Empress Dowager slipped out of the palace in secret. In the pavilion, she played chess with her mother while admiring the lotus blossoms. The Empress Dowager had taught her mother how to play chess, so of course her mother was no match for her and lost several games in a row. Just as she was growing restless, her mother looked up at her pair of children not far away and suddenly smiled. The Empress Dowager gazed at her and said, "You're smiling even though you lost the game, Your Majesty. There's a saying back in my hometown, when a man reaches middle age, there are 3 great blessings: promotion, wealth, and the death of his wife." My mother said with a smile, "Now I've also had my promotion, wealth, and widowhood, so of course I'm happy even if I lose at chess." The Empress Dowager looked at my mother and smiled too. "Indeed, after hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section." Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. While gathering herbs in the mountains, I encountered a severely injured man. He promised me that if I saved him, he would take me as his concubine. Is being a concubine some kind of blessing? The second sister from next door became the prefect's concubine, and within 2 months, she was beaten to death by the principal wife and thrown into a mass grave. Her own family didn't even dare to go collect her body. I shook my head. "I won't be a concubine. If you want to repay me, give me 100 taels. Before I could finish, the man interrupted. "To be my official wife, your status as a country girl isn't enough. Being a concubine in my Yongchang Marquis manor would be an immense fortune for you." Perhaps he didn't hear me, so I patiently repeated, "Just give me 100 taels of silver as your repayment." "No, I am the heir of a noble house. How could I be ungrateful? You saved me. I must repay you by taking you as my concubine, to shelter you from wind and rain." He doesn't understand human language. I took a deep breath. picked up the large stone on the ground, and hurled it at the man. As he looked on in panic, the man slumped to the ground with his head tilted, completely lifeless. Concubine, concubine, concubine. Go be a concubine yourself in your next life. From the man's body, she retrieved a high-quality jade pendant, warm to the touch, which looked like it was worth quite a bit of silver. So he does have money indeed. The richer people are, the stingier they become. Still want to take a concubine for free? Go to hell. I carefully put away the jade pendant and sighed at the man on the ground. Since I've started doing a good deed, I might as well finish it. I'll give you a proper burial. What can I say? I'm just too soft-hearted. You killed him. A man in splendid attire, yet disheveled and injured, stumbled out of the woods, furious. How dare you, insolent commoner, you dare to assassinate the heir of the Yongchang Marquis estate? I frowned. Did you see it? The man was taken aback. See what? If you didn't see it, why are you shouting nonsense? With all these injuries on him, do you think a delicate woman like me could have done it? The son of the Marquis of Yongchang had multiple knife wounds and was also hit by an arrow. He was bleeding profusely and didn't receive timely treatment, so he's bound to die sooner or later. I just did a small favor, ending his suffering a bit earlier. The man before me thought what I said made sense and reined in his anger. To be honest with you, miss, I am the Prince of Zhennan. If you lend a hand to save me, I will surely reward you handsomely. Ha, another nobleman. The title Little Prince of the South sounds more prestigious and valuable than the identity of the heir to the Marquis of Yongchang. 100 taels of silver is too little. It doesn't match the noble status of the Little Prince of the South. Start by asking for 1,000 taels of silver. If that doesn't work, you can lower the price a bit. With money, I wouldn't have to risk going up the mountain to gather herbs, and I could even open a pharmacy. I have to ask first, what's the reward? The Prince of Southern Town, the current emperor, has no sons. This time, I have been summoned to the capital. Do you know what that means? I shook my head. It's none of my business. I only care about my silver. The Prince of Southern Town choked back his words. Utterly foolish. Never mind. I'll teach you slowly in the future. If you save me, I can offer you the position of a concubine. His voice was arrogant, carrying an air of looking down upon the world. When I inherit the throne, you will become a consort in the palace, enjoying endless wealth and honor, as well as supreme power. His injuries made him unable to hold on, and he slid to the ground, leaning against a large tree. His face was pale, but his eyes remained haughty. I leaned in close to him and whispered, "Keep your voice down. Do you want to attract wild beasts? I have no desire to be your concubine," he exclaimed. "You want to be the principal consort? No, your status is too low. Even being a secondary consort is a favor to you. Under normal circumstances, someone of your standing wouldn't even be qualified to enter the prince's mansion as a lowly concubine." His tone was mocking, his gaze disdainful, as if granting me the title of secondary consort was an immense favor I had stumbled upon. "Keep your voice down. If you attract wild beasts, neither of us will be able to escape." Even with my usually calm temper, I couldn't help but feel a bit angry at this moment. The smell of blood was already strong, and now with all the loud noise, it was as if we were deliberately trying to guide the wolves, tigers, and leopards in the mountains straight to us. Immediately, I stuffed a handful of grass into his mouth. "You don't have to marry me, just give me 1,000 taels of silver as payment." "Is that too much? 800 taels will do, or 700. Nod or shake your head." The southern prince of the town stared at me fixedly, not moving. I frowned. 500 taels, no less. If you don't agree, you can stay here. I'll move the grass away. Do you promise to speak softly? Only after seeing him nod did I remove the weeds. Countless women would do anything to enter my Zhennan prince's mansion, yet you dare to refuse. If you escort me back to the mansion safely, I'll grant you a proper burial. The young Zhennan prince, likely having never suffered such humiliation before, began to speak recklessly without considering his own situation. The words carried too much killing intent. If he hadn't been severely injured and unable to move, I would probably be dead by now. Another arrogant fool who doesn't understand human speech. Regretfully, I picked up the blood-stained stone. "Stop. How dare you attempt to assassinate the future son of heaven? I, the prince, will exterminate your entire clan and sell you to the filthiest brothel, where you'll be trampled by thousands and ridden by tens of thousands." The voice, filled with shock and fury, abruptly cut off. The man who called himself the prince of the southern town rolled his eyes and collapsed to the ground, a large hole in his head from which blood continued to gush. He checked his nose. There was no breath. Good, a single strike to kill without suffering. Otherwise I would feel uneasy inside. Who made me such a soft-hearted person? This man who called himself the southern king of the town had quite a few valuable things on him: jade pendants, bracelets, jade thumb rings. Any one of them could be worth several hundred taels. It's not good to place too much importance on silver. In the end, it will all come to me anyway. The smell of blood easily attracts wild beasts, so I covered the bloodstains on the ground with soil and cleaned up the area. The two men who had shared both joy and sorrow were also dragged to an open area with a water source, ready to be burned and then properly buried. The deep mountains are full of wolves, tigers, and leopards. Even if they were buried in a pit, they would likely be dug up and eaten by wild beasts. Just thinking about that scene is too pitiful. It's better to burn them and let them rest in peace. As a weak woman, I worked all afternoon without any help, sweat soaked through my clothes, and the firewood was barely enough. My stomach is growling with hunger, so I take out the dry rations I always carry with me, ready to have a quick bite. "Miss, please, save me." Another man, severely injured, appears. Did I stumble into a den of men today? The man was covered in filth, his face pale and ghastly, with dried bloodstains caked into dark brown patches all over his body. He struggled to crawl out from behind the tree, mustering all his strength to speak in one breath. "I am Jiang Ji, son of the general of the Dragon Martial Guard. If you are willing to save me, I will offer you 1,000 taels of gold, make you my lawful wife, and swear to treat you well for the rest of my life. If I break this vow, may I be struck by lightning." That's an interesting statement. If I become your lawful wife, what will happen to your original wife? The debt of a life saved is paramount. My wife is a most reasonable person and would certainly be willing to yield her position as the principal wife to you, gladly demoting herself to a concubine. I was only testing to see if he had a wife, but it turns out he really does. Your wife must come from a noble family like you. Is she truly willing? A woman, once married, regards her husband as her heaven. She has no choice but to comply, whose daughter has had the misfortune of 8 lifetimes to marry you. I took a deep breath and pointed at the firewood pile. "Do you recognize them?" Jiangxi glanced quickly and wailed, "I do. They are the heir of Yongchang Marquis and the young prince of Zhennan. We came into the mountains together for hunting, but we got separated after encountering assassins. I never expected that they would fall victim to the assassins. When I return to the capital and report this to His Majesty, I will mention that you, out of kindness, collected their bodies. The Yongchang Marquis's household and the Prince of Zhennan's household will surely thank you, and His Majesty will also reward you." I fell silent. During my dragging, the two men's hair crowns had come loose, their clothes were torn beyond recognition of style and color, and they were covered in firewood. It was nearly dark, and the light was dim. Even if you looked closely, without moving the firewood aside, you wouldn't be able to see their faces. Yet he could recognize them with just a glance. "Please, miss, save me. Once I inherit the general's estate, everyone in the household will honor you as the mistress, and you will manage the household affairs." The rest of his words were silenced by a stone I threw. This man was quite tenacious. Even after being hit by my stone, he didn't die immediately and instead questioned, Why, he gave me silver and made me his principal wife, so why did I still want to kill him? Do you think losing 1,000 taels of gold doesn't hurt me? My heart aches as if it's been pierced by a huge hole, but compared to this heartache, I'm more afraid of having the money but not the life to spend it. This person clearly saw me kill the lord of the southern town and only came out when he couldn't hold on any longer. He can bend and stretch. Once he's saved, crushing an ant like me would be easy. Speaking of which, doesn't the general of the Dragon Guard only have daughters? When did he get a son? He must be a fraud. Thinking of this, I swiftly threw another stone at him. The man had no valuable accessories on him, but he did have 2 silver ingots, so poor, and he still calls himself the son of a general, not even bringing more when going out, but at least it could somewhat soothe my agitated mood. Cash is better than accessories, no marks needed, can be used directly without going to the black market for now. The accessories can only be kept and admired in secret. Drag his body onto the woodpile as well, and with the 3 brothers neatly arranged, a great fire burned everything to ashes. It burned until dawn the next day before the last flicker of flame finally went out. I've been keeping watch here all night, afraid that sparks might fly around, so I can douse them with water in time. The nearby villagers rely on the mountain for their livelihood. We can't let it be ruined. Since you 3 know each other, you'll have company on the road to the underworld. Don't worry, I'll find you a good feng shui spot to be buried. In your next life, you can be reborn as livestock after all. You can't understand human speech anyway. I dug a hole next to the water source, threw the bones that weren't completely burned into the pit, scooped in a few handfuls of ash, covered it tightly with soil, and then placed a few rocks on top to secure it. That way, the beast won't be able to dig it out. This place is beautiful and peaceful. Rest well here. Meeting me was a stroke of luck for these 3. Others wouldn't go to the trouble of cleaning up the aftermath after all this hard work. I was both tired and sleepy, heading towards the temporary hut in the mountains, planning to rest before going to gather herbs. Halfway there, a hand reached out from the grass and grabbed my ankle, startling me so much that I jumped. The hand was slender, fair, and covered in wounds, yet it was quite strong. Pushing aside the grass, sure enough, it was a woman dressed in narrow sleeves, with a high ponytail. The outfit is neat and sharp, looking comfortable and elegant. How strange today. Not only did I stir up a nest of men, but also a nest of wounded. I reached out to check for breath. There was still life. Gently patting her face. "Miss, wake up." The woman opened her eyes, her breath weak. "Miss, save me." She pulled a gold bracelet and a gold hairpin from inside her collar, handed them to me, and then fainted. They were heavy, all pure gold and without any markings. The style is also very ordinary. Well, who made me soft-hearted? I had no choice but to bring the woman back to the mountain cabin, clean her wounds, and apply the herbs I had gathered. I also brewed a fever-reducing decoction for her and forced her to drink it. I've done all I can, the rest is up to fate. Fortunately, by the next morning, her fever had subsided, and she regained consciousness. I will definitely repay you for your great kindness, miss. I waved my hands repeatedly and took out the bracelet and gold hairpin she had given me. You've already given payment, there's no need for further repayment. These nobles aren't very bright in the head. Who knows if her gratitude might be terrifying. I am the only legitimate daughter of the current emperor, Princess Yuanzhao. You are my benefactor, and naturally, you will be richly rewarded. When I return, I will personally petition my father to grant you the title of. She's not going to make me a concubine, is she? Even though he's the most honorable emperor, I don't want to be his consort, nor do I want to go to the palace. The concubines inside aren't allowed to leave. It's no different from being imprisoned. I can't defy a noble, so I'll just have to take advantage of her illness to end her life. No need, county princess. Become my sworn sister, and I shall grant you power and wealth. I immediately withdrew my gaze from searching for a handy tool. Really, the princess said solemnly, I am not the kind of person who forgets kindness and betrays loyalty. If you have any other requests, feel free to mention them. I beamed with joy. No need, no need. This is perfect. I thank your highness for your generous favor. Kindness is always rewarded, and here it comes. By the way, what were you about to say earlier? The princess struggled to get up. I quickly went over to help the princess sit up, thoughtfully placing a pillow behind her back. What I meant was, you've just woken up and shouldn't overexert yourself. If there's anything you need, just give the order. Even if you want me to hunt a tiger to nourish your health, I'll go and do it right away. In the days that followed, I served the princess diligently and conscientiously, striving to meet her every need. Come to think of it, don't these noble ladies always travel with a whole entourage of maids and servants? So why is it that none of the ones I've encountered have a single guard by their side? The princess recovered from her injuries, and her guard then appeared. Could it be that this guy arrived long ago and has been hiding in the shadows, Keeping an eye on me, that's just being suspicious of others, isn't it? I'm soft-hearted and kind, how could I possibly do anything bad? The princess asked me to return to the capital with her, but I need to dry the medicinal herbs I worked so hard to gather first before leaving. The princess gave me a token and told me not to wander off, to wait for her to send someone to pick me up, but instead, I first encountered the people sent by my father, who invited me back to the mansion without any explanation. Oh, old man, tired of living the good life and decided to bring me back to stir up trouble. My opening words made the teary-eyed general of the Dragon Guard, who had hoped for a heartwarming father-daughter reunion, grimace in frustration. Don't you miss your father at all? Wasn't it you who sent me away and then ignored me for so many years? A flicker of guilt crossed my father's face. Master, Jia has been missing for so many days, something must have happened to him. Send more people to search for him, even if you have to turn the capital upside down to find him. Uncle, my brother is missing, and my sister-in-law is so anxious that she's having complications with her pregnancy. My mother came in with her niece, Jiang Yang, both of them weeping and wailing. Who is Jia? I was curious and puzzled. What did his disappearance have to do with my father? Jia is of course the son of me and the master. My mother frowned deeply. I said it was strange that Jia got into trouble out of nowhere. It must be because you brought bad luck. I won't take the blame for this. If you're delusional, go see a doctor, or hire a shaman to perform a ritual. Barking like a dog won't help. I sincerely asked my father, when did you get another son? Didn't my mother only give birth to me? Outrageous. Matters of your elders are not for you to question. Did I ask you, master? Look at her, she doesn't have the slightest respect for me as her mother. My father guiltily looked up at the sky and down at the ground, ignoring my mother's complaints. The year before last, Jiang Yang sternly rebuked, cousin, how can you speak so harshly to your own father and mother? As children, we should obey our parents at home. Even if you learned no manners at all on the estate, you should still understand this principle. I lifted my eyelids and gave her a cold look. You, on the other hand, have learned manners, but do you not know that one should not interrupt when others are speaking? It seems your manners aren't that great either. I'll have my father arrange for 2 more nannies to teach you all over again. Aunt, I know I'm living under someone else's roof, and I'm always afraid of causing you trouble. I'm cautious and filial to you and uncle every day. Why does my cousin still dislike me so much? What have I done wrong? I clicked my tongue in amazement. Over the years, your skill at changing expressions has really improved. Did you study at the Pear Garden? After all, I am the daughter of a respectable family. My cousin comparing me to an actress is just bullying me for having no parents. Just like 10 years ago. As soon as Jiang Yang started crying, my mother immediately went into overprotective mode. He Li, apologized to Yanga, you ill-mannered thing. I ignored her unreasonable demand and stretched lazily. I'm tired and need to rest. Is there a courtyard for me? My mother trembled with anger, her lips quivering. You, my father instructed the butler to show me the way. Behind me came my mother's helpless, furious voice. Aren't you going to do something? Sir, are you just going to let her run wild? My father has really come up in the world. 10 years ago, he was just a minor general of the 3rd rank. And our home wasn't this big. After becoming a 2nd-rank general of the Dragon Guard, he has managed to line his pockets quite a bit over the years. Hearing my muttering, the butler wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and quickly said, Miss, all of this was properly acquired. The general was rewarded by the emperor for his meritorious service in protecting the imperial carriage. Your courtyard was personally overseen by the general when the servants were arranging it. Even when the madam insisted on letting the cousin's daughter live there, the general didn't agree. My father has really put a lot of thought into it, arranging the courtyard perfectly in every detail. It's just that this style is what my mother likes. Where did my father get a son from? The eldest young master is Lady Jiangxi, the twin brother of the young lady. 3 years ago, Madam adopted the eldest young master from the Jiang family, registered him in the He family genealogy, and changed his name to He Ji. My father just agreed to this. The lady locked herself in her room for 3 days and 3 nights, neither eating nor drinking. The master was afraid something might happen to her. I had heard before that Jiang Yang had a twin brother who had always been raised in the Jiang family. I never expected that the first time we met, I would end up helping my arch-rival, who had taken my father and seized my family's property. I really am a soft-hearted person after all. After a day's journey, I had the servants bring hot water for a comfortable bath and then fell into a deep sleep at some unknown hour. Faint noises came from outside, followed by a wisp of green smoke drifting in through the cracks in the window. Half a quarter of an hour later, a young man's trembling voice was heard. Do we really have to do this? After all, she is the general's legitimate daughter, another middle-aged woman whispered. What are you afraid of? Once her virtue is lost, she'll have no choice but to marry you, becoming the son-in-law of the general's estate, soaring to great heights. It's something many people dream of. What if we're discovered? Don't be so timid. If you don't want the wealth and status that's right within your grasp, there are plenty of others who will. I'll do it. The door was gently pushed open, and a shadow crept stealthily in the dark to my bedside. Just as the bed curtain was lifted, I struck them precisely on the head with a porcelain pillow. The intruder let out a muffled groan, their upper body collapsing onto the bed, lifeless. A little sedative like that couldn't knock me out. Holding the porcelain pillow, I stepped barefoot onto the floor and silently went to open the door. The person waiting outside muttered to himself, He Li, oh He Li, you had to come back and hinder my son's future. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Before she could react, she was also struck by my porcelain pillow and fell to the ground. Just as stubborn as her son, she didn't die immediately and was still breathing. I am your mother. You, killing your own mother, is against all reason. How could you be my mother? You are the mother of Jiang Yang and Jiang Shi, my dear aunt. You little bastard. You knew all along. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, You've been longing for Jia, haven't you? Now you can be reunited with him. You killed Ji. She unwillingly breathed her last breath. Master, the eldest young lady has killed the mistress. My mother's personal maid hurriedly brought my father over, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. Master, you must seek justice for the mistress. My father suddenly turned his head, his gaze dark and fixed on the maid. Who are you saying is the murderer? Momo gasped for breath. Miss, it's so dark. How could you possibly see clearly who the murderer is? This is clearly a frame-up. Someone gag this treacherous servant who killed her master and take her away for strict custody. As soon as my father spoke, the housekeeper came in with 2 guards and dragged away the terrified Momo. Only my father and I were left. My father was silent for a long time. You're too impulsive. Father, it's time to wake up after all these years. She is not my mother, and she will never tell you where my mother is. My mother was killed by them long ago. Shut up. Your mother is still alive. She must be alive. I'm waiting to bring her home. For 12 whole years. Have you refused to believe that my mother is no longer in this world, or have you grown attached to the comfort offered by the thief? It must be the latter. After all, you even adopted her son. People's hearts are fickle. After all these years, my father has long lost his original intentions. The marriage between the Yongchang Marquis manor and the He family was arranged by the emperor, but the willful and capricious daughter of the Marquis disliked the rough, martial arts-loving general from the countryside and eloped with a handsome but poor scholar who had come to the capital to take the imperial examinations. To avoid the crime of deceiving the emperor, the Yongchang Marquis manor had their second daughter, who had been lost while visiting a temple with her family at the age of 1 and had only recently been found, pretend to be the eldest daughter and marry into the He family. They publicly declared that the second daughter, having grown up in the countryside, was wild and untamed, had eloped with an outsider against her parents' wishes and the matchmakers' arrangements, tarnishing the Yongchang Marquis manor's reputation, and had been disowned by the Marquis's family. My mother and Jiang Yang's mother were originally twins, identical in both appearance and height. My father had only seen the young lady of the Yongchang Marquis's household from afar at a few banquets, never exchanging a word, and thus was unaware that the Marquis's family had substituted someone else to marry him. The He family had a simple household, with only one elderly lady, who was also a kind person and did not make things difficult for the new bride. My father and my mother had contrasting personalities, one strong and one gentle, and over the course of their marriage, they gradually developed feelings for each other. The elders are kind, and the couple is deeply in love, so my mother lived a very happy life after marriage. The change occurred when I was 5 years old. The wife of the Marquis of Yongchang fell seriously ill and sent a message expressing her longing for my mother, asking her to return for a short stay. The current emperor values filial piety greatly, so even though my mother was unwilling to go to the Yongchang Marquis's estate, she had no choice but to go for the sake of my father's future. During our time at the Yongchang Marquis's estate, my mother stayed in the Marquise's courtyard to attend to her illness, while I lived in another courtyard, supervised by the Marquise's trusted nanny. No matter how much I cried or threw tantrums, they never took me to see my mother. Later, my mother finally came to take me home, bringing Jiang Yang along with her. Li Yang's mother has passed away. Her father is an alcoholic and a gambler, and their family is in dire straits, living a very hard life. From now on, she will be a young lady of the general's mansion, just like you, even though her tone, demeanor, and every gesture are exactly like my mother's. But I know, she is not my mother. Returning to the general's mansion, I tearfully told my father that the one who came back is not my mother, that my mother is buried in the back garden of the Marquis of Yongchang's estate, under a sweet osmanthus tree. I saw it when I crawled through the dog hole to find my mother. My father secretly sneaked into the Marquis's mansion to search but found nothing. Father subtly probed and tested the mother at home, which instead proved that she was indeed my mother. After Jiang Yang entered the mansion, she competed with me in everything and compared herself to me at every turn, but I am not a weak person either. She couldn't get any advantage from me, but she had someone backing her up. By the time my father returned, I, still a small child, had been punished by kneeling in the ancestral hall for 5 days without food, barely clinging to life. My mother hypocritically threw herself on me, crying, "Ali, I didn't really mean to punish you, but your temper is too wild. You disrespect your parents and don't get along with your sisters. If I don't discipline you properly, you'll cause big trouble in the future." Little Jiang Yang also cried along. "Cousin, I was wrong. I won't eat the chicken leg anymore, and I'm not trying to take auntie away from you. You can hit or scold me however you like, and I won't fight back." Rumors began to spread in the capital that I was rebellious, unfilial, and bullied the weak. At that time, my father was busy with government affairs, and my grandmother was already advanced in age. Neither had the energy to manage me, so they decided to send me to the estate. On the day I left, I cried bitterly and begged my father not to send me away. "Father, Ali is a good child. Ali didn't lie. She is not my mother." My father crouched down and patted my head. "Ali, I believe you, but I need to keep her here to find your mother. You said you kept her to find clues about my mother, but all these years there hasn't been a single trace of her. You sent your own daughter away, brought back the child of your enemy to raise, and now you want to hand over the entire family to the son of your enemy. Father, do my mother and I no longer have any place in your heart?" My father lowered his head in despair. "Ali, I have wronged your mother, and I have wronged you even more. I will make it up to you. That's what you said yourself before dawn." Jiang Yang, accompanied by the old lady of the Yongchang Marquis Manor, caused a scene at the general's mansion, demanding to take me away. "Beast, even tearing you apart with 5 horses and cutting you into 1,000 pieces cannot comfort my son's spirit in heaven or ease the hatred in my heart." Jiang Yang's mother was raised like a pearl in the hands of the old marquise, so her sudden death naturally left her utterly heartbroken. The old marquise, accustomed to a life of luxury, looked utterly haggard. My father refused to hand me over, not only out of favoritism but also because I was his only bloodline. Over the years, he had not been without effort, but neither his wife nor his concubine had been able to bear a child. When I first left the estate, I often hid by the small river outside the village and cried, with no one to care for me. It was there that I met a young woman. She asked me why I was crying, though I was young at the time. The sudden upheaval and the discussions of those around me made me vaguely aware of my situation. I said, "Father will marry a stepmother, send me away," and there will be other children in the future. I'll be the unwanted little wretch," the young lady raised her spirited eyebrows. "Little one, even if you turn into a beggar and starve to death, no one will care. If you want something, go fight for it yourself, understand?" I looked up at her. "How do I compete? Teach me, sister." She took out a porcelain bottle. "Give this to your father to drink. Will it poison my father?" "No, if your father were poisoned, who would earn wealth and honor for you? This medicine ensures that everything your father has from now on will belong only to you." At the end of the year, I hid in the convoy of New Year's goods sent by the estate manager to the mansion and returned home. My father, my mother, and Jiang Yang, dressed in new clothes, were enjoying the New Year's Eve dinner. The happy scene of the three of them as a family stung my eyes, and tears welled up instantly. I wiped away my tears and, without a single complaint, obediently said I missed my father. I made him the milk pudding I learned to prepare at the estate, playfully coaxing him to finish every last drop without causing my father any trouble. I willingly followed the convoy back to the estate. To this day, my father still remembers that dessert, praising me to everyone for braving the wind and snow at such a young age to show my filial piety to him. My mother's death was masterminded by the old marquise. How can she still be alive and kicking, while my mother's body remains missing to this day? I searched everywhere for a handy tool, thinking I could just smash her and be done with it. Her Highness the Princess has arrived. Oh, such a tense atmosphere. What's going on? Tell me all about it. The sudden arrival of the princess left everyone bewildered, and the noisy general's mansion fell silent. The elderly Marchioness, relying on her seniority, stepped forward. "Your Highness, General Longwuwei is sheltering He Li, the murderer who killed his own mother. He shows no regard for the laws of the state. I beg your Highness to seek justice for my poor, wrongfully deceased daughter." The princess took her seat in the main chair. "Is that so? What do you have to say for yourself?" "General He, my father." "Nonsense. Ali is a filial child. How could she possibly kill her mother as soon as she returned to the estate? The matter has been thoroughly investigated. It was the old servant by the madam's side who stole valuables to pay off her son's gambling debts. She killed the madam to cover it up after being discovered. The old marquise is advanced in age, and even if she is biased, she cannot condemn someone to death with just a word. Everything must be based on evidence. You cannot convict someone with mere empty words. I am the evidence." Jiang Yang knelt before the princess, pointing at me. "I beg your Highness to uphold justice. It really was my cousin who killed my aunt." The princess did not respond to Jiang Yang but instead looked at me. "What do you have to say?" I bowed to the princess and said, "Your Highness, Jiang Yang claims she is the evidence." Then let her state the time and place of the entire incident, my motive and tools for the crime, and who was present. Jiang Yang couldn't answer, stammering, "You were jealous of how well my aunt treated me. Because of that, I would kill my own mother." "Jiang Yang, your excuse for slandering me is too clumsy." Jiang Yang wasn't even involved in the incident. She only heard the nanny's cry. The eldest young lady killed the mistress. In her panic, she didn't even dare to take a look and instead took advantage of the chaos to run to the Yongchang Marquis's residence to seek help. The princess took a leisurely sip of tea. "I understand now. Miss Jiang and sister He have a personal grudge, don't they?" Jiang Yang's face turned pale with panic. "No, I didn't falsely accuse my cousin. It really was my cousin who killed my mother, my aunt." The old Marchioness was so furious that her chest heaved uncontrollably. "Is your Highness also going to shield a murderer? I will file a complaint with the Emperor and seek justice from His Majesty." How dare you offend Her Highness, slap her face." The lady-in-waiting by the princess's side walked up to the old Marchioness and raised her hand, ready to strike whether out of fear or pretense. The old Marchioness rolled her eyes and fainted. The princess sent her own guards to escort Jiang Yang and the old Marchioness back to the mansion, with a message for the Marquis of Yongchang. "My sworn sister, County Princess Jiari, is the kindest and most compassionate person. Anyone who dares to oppose the county princess must first ask if I, Yuan Zhao, will allow it." Princess Yuan Zhao kept her promise and brought the imperial edict personally written by the emperor. I was granted the title of Lady Jiari. The matter concluded with the nanny in the household stealing valuables and, upon being discovered, murdering the mistress. As for the nanny who committed the crime, she has already been dealt with. The disappearance of the southern king in the town left the Yongchang Marquis mansion, which had aligned with him, without a backer. They dared not openly offend the general's mansion, which had the princess as its support, and could only swallow their grievances. Taking advantage of this opportunity, my father held a grand funeral for my mother. The bodies of Jiang Yang's mother and the man she had brought were completely burned in a fire. During the old marquise's birthday banquet, an invitation was surprisingly sent to the general's mansion. Afraid I wouldn't agree to go, they even invited the wives of several influential officials to persuade me. The gist was that my maternal grandfather's family intended to make peace, hoping that I, as a junior, would consider the bigger picture and not be ungrateful, lest it affect my future marriage prospects. On the day of the Hongmen banquet, I dressed up early. My father was deeply worried. Maybe you shouldn't go. I looked indifferent. In front of so many people, they wouldn't dare do anything to me. I have nothing to hide. Not going would only make me look guilty. As soon as I arrived at Yongchang Marquis Manor, Jiang Yang said the old marquise wanted to see me alone and dismissed my maid. I followed her all the way to the old marquise's courtyard, where it was eerily quiet. With only a sturdy nanny accompanying the old marquise sat upright on a rosewood chair, giving me a fleeting glance. After sending Jiang Yang away, I had the nanny go and close the door. This was the opportunity. While the nanny had her back turned to me, I grabbed a vase and smashed it forcefully against her head. The sturdy nanny fell to the ground with a thud, dead. The old lady of the house never expected me to be so bold. Terrified, she knocked over the scalding tea beside her, unable to even cry out, and could only weakly gasp for help. I quickly walked over to finish the battle swiftly, and the old lady who also fell. When you go down to see my mother, remember to apologize. You can also reunite with your dear grandson, the heir of Yongchang. Who no choice. I had to be a good person once again. Jiang Yang, who had reached the courtyard gate, heard the noise and came back to check, only to be knocked unconscious by me. Though she is despicable, she had no part in my mother's death, and I will not kill the innocent indiscriminately. I summoned the hidden guards given to me by the princess and had Jiang Yang escorted out of the Yongchang Marquis estate first. When Jiang Yang called me away, no one noticed. Now, as I returned to the group of women with my maid, everyone simply assumed I had just arrived. Just as the banquet was about to begin, chaos erupted. The elderly lady who was murdered, and the Marquis of Yongchang led a search for the killer. The guests who had come to offer their congratulations were suspected of being the murderer, and they immediately turned hostile, demanding to leave. The Marquis of Yongchang, who held great power, dared not offend them and had no choice but to let them go. Those of lower status than him were detained for questioning. As a result, he offended many people. The Marquis of Yongchang wanted to take me away for separate interrogation, but was stopped by the maid given to me by the princess. The maid presented a token. By the princess's order, County Mistress Jiari is her sworn sister. To see the county mistress is to see the princess, and no one may show disrespect. The Marquis of Yongchang wanted to detain me by force, but he had no evidence, and my maid was skilled in martial arts. Leaving him fuming with anger as he watched me leave, the emperor, who had spent years in the harem in pursuit of heirs, had exhausted his health. Now, in his advanced age, his condition was deteriorating day by day. The imperial hospital had long been under the control of the princess. The emperor truly believed, as the imperial physicians had told him, that he was merely getting older, feeling fatigued, and that he would be fine with more rest. After the disappearance of the Prince of Jiangnan, the court situation became turbulent and unstable. Various factions were eager to take sides, and their actions were continuous. Memorials recommending candidates for the crown prince were submitted to the emperor like snowflakes. The princess also played a role in fueling this situation. The emperor saw clearly that his subjects were not entirely loyal to him. No ruler can tolerate their power being threatened. Moreover, he believed himself to be the true son of heaven, blessed by the heavens, and destined for a long life. Therefore, He announced to his ministers that the matter of establishing an heir required careful consideration and should not be rushed. One night, when the emperor got up, he overheard a young eunuch outside the door addressing the chief eunuch, Eunuch Li, as godfather, offering warm and caring words. What a touching display of fatherly affection and filial piety. After all, as one grows old, the desire for children and grandchildren to gather around becomes stronger. The emperor began frequently summoning Princess Yuanzhao into the palace. Each time she entered the palace, the princess would bring the emperor some food she had personally prepared. Sometimes it was medicinal cuisine, sometimes easily digestible pastries, sometimes simple home-cooked dishes, and occasionally she would also tidy up the cluttered imperial desk. While the emperor reviewed memorials, she would quietly accompany him, grinding ink by his side, only when the emperor actively inquired about her views on a certain issue in the court would the princess express her opinions, presenting them with reason and evidence. Neither arrogant nor impatient, the emperor praised, "My child is both virtuous and talented, and her filial piety is commendable." He then sighed, "What a pity she is not a boy. Nevertheless, I will leave a testamentary edict that whoever succeeds to the throne in the future must treat my child well." Princess Yuanzhao said calmly, "As his only child, even if he recognizes my abilities, he still looks down on my gender. Little Ali, just watch. One day, I will make gender irrelevant. What men can do, women can do too. Of course, I have to support the princess's grand ambitions. How about I smash a porcelain vase over that person's head to help you achieve your wish sooner?" The princess burst into laughter. "No need to rush, just wait and enjoy the show." With peach blossoms in full bloom and grass growing as orioles fly, the palace holds a spring banquet every year, which the emperor and all his consorts attend. At the banquet, the emperor's most beloved consort Li suddenly vomited uncontrollably at the sight of a plate of braised carp. The imperial physician diagnosed consort Li as pregnant. The emperor was overjoyed. "Heaven has blessed us. I now have an heir. Reward her. Promote consort Li to noble consort Li." The emperor had only given birth to a princess with the late empress when he was 30 years old. After that, the imperial harem produced no more offspring. At the age of knowing one's destiny, to suddenly have another child, how could one not be overjoyed? The princess also congratulated her father with a beaming smile, pulling the imperial physician aside to inquire in detail, showing a clear intention to personally go and care for consort Li. The emperor was deeply gratified. "Yuanzhao, you finally have a younger brother of your own. You must protect this realm well for your imperial brother." The princess concealed the mockery in her eyes and casually asked the imperial physician, "How many months along is consort Li's pregnancy?" The imperial physician bowed respectfully and replied, "Your Highness, it has been 3 months." Crash! The emperor was furious, smashing the wine cup in his hand to the ground, shattering it into pieces. "You wretch! How dare you commit adultery and defile the palace? Guards, take her away and beat her to death with clubs." Having experienced extreme joy and sorrow, the emperor passed away that very night. Everything is under the princess's control. As the ministers were fiercely arguing over who should ascend the throne, Eunuch Li, who served by the emperor's side, came out with the imperial edict to announce it. The edict stated that the throne was to be passed to the princess. The ministers were in an uproar and demanded to verify the authenticity of the edict. The princess generously allowed them to inspect it as they pleased. The edict was a forgery, but no one knew that the princess had mastered 2 styles of calligraphy. For over a decade, she had secretly practiced imitating the emperor's handwriting, all for this very day. No one could detect any flaws, leaving the ministers exchanging bewildered glances. One minister, unwilling to accept the outcome, raised an objection. The emperor had previously intended to appoint the Prince of Junnan's son as the crown prince. Then it occurred to him that the Prince of Junnan's son had been missing all along, and he angrily accused the princess. "You killed the Prince of Junnan's son. You have the heart of a wolf. My father, the emperor, has just passed away, and you already want to rebel." The imperial guards behind the princess drew their weapons in unison, and the ministers shrank back in fear. The princess looked around and said, "All the rumors before were deliberately spread by my father to protect me. As his only bloodline, I have been personally taught by him for many years, so that he could pass the throne to me after his passing. Since ancient times, there has never been a woman as emperor, the princess declared with conviction. Then let this princess set the precedent. The scene fell silent for a moment, and a minister asked, Marquis Yongchang, what is your view on this matter? The Marquis of Yongchang was the staunchest supporter of the crown prince of the Prince of Junnan in the matter of establishing the heir, but now, the son of the Prince of Junnan is missing, and the son of the Marquis of Yongchang is also missing. Moreover, he is aware of the schemes the Prince of Junnan's son and his own son had plotted against the princess at this moment. The Marquis of Yongchang dares not recklessly step forward and make a fuss, fearing that old accounts might be brought up, which could potentially lead to the elimination of his entire clan. This old fox is clutching his head, pretending to have a headache. The princess thoughtfully had the palace maid help him to rest aside. A minister asked my father, General, your son used to be close with the Prince of Junnan's son. What's wrong with being close? Aren't young people allowed to make friends? My father looked at me, and I quietly took a step closer to the princess. My father gritted his teeth and took out the Imperial Guard's military tally, handing it to the princess. The emperor once personally stated that he would pass the throne to the princess and ordered us to protect her ascension to the throne. My father had taken a sword for the emperor, and as a trusted confidant of the emperor, his words still carried some credibility. Eunuch Li also came forward to testify. Before his passing, the emperor personally declared that the throne would be passed to the princess, and consort Shu was present as well. Eunuch Li had long been bribed by the princess, and it was unclear what conditions the princess had promised consort Shu. Consort Shu, supported by the palace maids, walked over with a weary expression. I can testify that before His Majesty passed away, he personally stated that the throne should be passed to the princess. I, my father, consort Shu, and Eunuch Li were the first to kneel and shout, a nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. We humbly request the new emperor to ascend the throne. Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor! Over the years, the princess had also won over some people in the court. These people also knelt down to acknowledge the princess. We respectfully request your Majesty to ascend the throne. Long live the emperor! With someone taking the lead, the other ministers gradually lowered their heads and knelt down one after another. Even if they did not kneel, they had no choice but to do so upon seeing the armored imperial guards lining the palace corridors. The princess soon ascended the throne, adopting the era name Yuanzhao. Your Majesty asked me what reward I desired. You helped me eliminate my greatest rival and secured a powerful ally. You are a great hero, I answered truthfully. In the past, I only wanted to avenge my mother. Now that my vengeance is complete, my wish is fulfilled, and I have nothing more to desire. His Majesty pondered for a moment. I grant you the title of Prince of Eternal Joy, along with a princely residence. You shall assist me in fulfilling my long-cherished wish, to promote women's education, select female officials, elevate the status of women, and help them become self-reliant. There were many voices in the court opposing my appointment as a prince. Whoever protested the loudest, His Majesty would send his secret guards to investigate them. None of these ministers are innocent. Some are corrupt and accept bribes, others seize commoners' daughters, and some even condone the misdeeds of their servants. For each one investigated, His Majesty metes out severe punishment. Suddenly, the voices opposing my appointment as a prince fell silent. I was promoted from County Princess Jiari to Prince Changel. My father also disapproved of my being in theft as a prince. Our family already has a first-rank general. To be in theft as a prince would be too conspicuous. My father took a timely stand and contributed to the emperor's rise to power. The emperor infeft him as a first-rank general to protect the nation, which is a tremendous honor for our family. I nodded. You're right, father. Our family really shouldn't be too ostentatious. You should resign from your official position to the emperor. My father was stunned. I looked at him seriously and said, Father, do you know what my mother's name was? She wasn't Jiyu Mingzhu, she was Lin Daohua, a name given by her adoptive parents, hoping she would live as brilliantly as peach blossoms. Many years ago, I found my mother's remains and buried them in the peach grove on the estate. Haven't you always said you miss my mother to the bone? My mother misses you too. Go and be with her. My mother's remains have long been lost, as a child. Powerless and without influence, how could I possibly have found them? My father now feels guilty toward me and my mother. He gave me a deep look before turning and leaving. The next day, he went to the palace to resign from his official post, and the emperor gladly agreed. After my father left, it felt as if a huge stone had been lifted from my heart, and everything suddenly became clear. My feelings toward my father are complicated, and I don't know how to face him. He is my biological father, yet he lived with the person who caused my mother's death for 12 years, sending his own child away while raising someone else's child by his side. If it weren't for the chance encounter with Her Majesty when I was young and her help, my father already has a house full of children, so there is no place for me in the general's mansion. I recognized His Majesty in the mountains, never expecting that by chance I would help him eliminate his rival and repay a childhood favor. It seems fate has its own way of weaving our paths together. After leaving a house and a shop for Jiangxi's pregnant wife, Lin Jinna, to secure her livelihood, I sold everything from the general's mansion. With the money in hand, I moved into the Prince of Chang'e's residence and threw myself wholeheartedly into my new goal. Seeing me busy and constantly on the move for the sake of the girls' school over the years, His Majesty thought I deserved a reward. My dear minister, do you want a man? You can choose from princes, nobles, and scions of distinguished families. Your Majesty, I only want men, not marriage. Is that acceptable? The emperor laughed heartily and sent a group of men around my age the very next day. From among them, I selected 3 that I liked, making it clear that I was not choosing a husband, but only companions. Those willing to stay would be well treated, and those unwilling to leave would not be blamed by His Majesty. 3 handsome gentlemen looked at each other, each expressing their willingness to stay. 2 years later, I gave birth to a daughter and named her she. I went to the palace to ask His Majesty for a male sterilization drug. I had no intention of having another child, nor did I want my daughter to have half-siblings competing for power and influence in the years to come. Princess side story: my father ascended the throne with the support of my mother's family, but once he had firmly secured his position, he turned against them. He poisoned my mother to death, found a trivial excuse to banish my maternal grandfather's family to a harsh, remote border region to guard the frontier, and forbade them from returning to the capital without an imperial decree. In the capital, I was left alone as a young child, but fortunately, I was the only imperial heir in the palace. When the emperor has other offspring, my fate will be the same as that of my maternal clan. Eunuch Li, who serves by the emperor's side, once received favors from my mother, and the head of the imperial hospital was saved by my grandfather when he was young. Thus, I successfully administered a sterility drug to the emperor. For many years thereafter, no more children were born in the palace. The emperor, who already had difficulty producing heirs, believed he was being punished by heaven for his misdeeds. I am the only princess in the palace. The southern prince of the town invited me to hunt in the mountains, hoping to make me owe him a life-saving favor, thereby gaining my support. My father only has the intention of making him the crown prince, and he is not the only suitable candidate. With my support, his chances would be great. Why hasn't he ever considered that I also want to compete for that position? I have arranged for people to ensure that the son of the Prince of Jiannan and his supporters, the son of the Marquis of Yongchang and the son of the General of the Dragon Guard are hunted down and killed in the mountains. These individuals truly have some skill. They actually managed to escape. It will be difficult to have such a good opportunity again in the future. What a pity. Fortunately, little He Li has resolved this tricky matter for me. The moment she appeared, I recognized her as the little girl who had cried like a flower cat all those years ago, just like me. She had a mother who died and a father who didn't care. If you want something, you have to fight for it with all your might. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.